Now, it's not often that I keep up with seasonal anime because I tend to prefer watching the whole season after it's done airing, but Kamiina Botan was an exception. It's hard to explain, but this series really clicked with me from the very beginning and I just couldn't stop watching it. Now, if I had to pick my favorite episode of the whole series, it was probably episode 8. Part of it was because of the actual plot, maybe it's because I've been in similar situations as Akane when it comes to feeling unsettled in a university and questioning her future, as well as the fact that at that point in the story, I think it was the most humble we had ever seen Botan act, seeing her confess that she had feelings for Ibuki and the insecurity that she felt regarding her relationship with her. It just felt very human, like it was a very human episode. But of course, what also complemented the experience were the insert songs, and this is essentially what drove me into the situation that I'm in right now. Prior to me watching the series, I wasn't very familiar with the band Yonige, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I instantly fell in love with the opening, but after watching episode 8 and hearing more of their songs, I felt compelled to look into their discography, and it was fun figuring out that they had released an EP that includes pretty much all of the 4 songs that were featured in the series. And I said, you know what, it's probably going to be a while before I get a season 1 Blu-ray release. I do like collecting physical media, which includes musical CDs, so screw it. I went to CD Japan and ordered the Blooming With You EP. Now, there are a couple of things that I did want to comment on. For one, this CD does come wrapped with an O card, which isn't too surprising, although it was interesting seeing that it was so themed around Kamiina Botan. It almost reminded me of the ending of episode 8, though it's definitely not the same setting, the location isn't the same, they're dressed differently, and Botan was the only one who had actually stepped into the water. If anything, given the little bubbles that were stamped at the top left conveniently located right above Ibuki's bottle, I see this as more of a representation of them drowning in alcohol, which falls in line with the theme of the series. Although of course, once you remove the O card and actually see the case, it's the same art cover as the official one. Now, this is just my conspiratorial, brain-rotted mind speaking, but I find it interesting how pink themed the case is. So, for a bit of context, Botan in the original manga is actually blonde, while in the anime she's pink-haired. So I do find it rather interesting for this color to be the central theme, including on the interior of the case and even the disc art. To be fair, I'm leaning more on the pink teddy bear being the inspiration, but I still found it rather interesting. It's a very cute packaging, but to make things even better, it also came with a postcard, signed by Arisa and Gokin. My Japanese is very rusty, but I was at the very least able to read up to the point where they thanked us for buying the CD, and Arisa said that she was happy. Interestingly enough, as part of my journey of discovering Yonige's discography, I ended up listening to the original Shiganai Futari, which I couldn't find on the official channel when I opened YouTube Music. I could only find a remix as well as someone's re-upload from 3 years ago, which goes to show to you the importance of physical media, something that Sony clearly wants to take away from us. I just realized that Neagawa City Pop is still available for pre-order on CD Japan. I might consider getting it. But anyway, back to the main subject. The other thing that comes included in this release, and was also one of the main reasons for why I decided to buy this in the first place, was the fact that it includes a second disc that contains the opening of the anime. Now, as I mentioned before, the OP was kinda what got me initially mesmerized, but there's one thing about the opening that I've always been complaining about, which is the fact that the version that we see getting broadcast each episode is actually cropped. You see, Aniplex actually uploaded the raw version of this opening on their YouTube channel, and you'll notice that the aspect ratio is 4:3. Meanwhile, on a regular episode, it's in 16:9. Now, having a wider aspect ratio isn't something that would take me off necessarily. If you want to show more footage on the edges, that's fine by me. But that's not what they did, they just outright cropped the footage, which to me at least kind of ruins the footage, not just because I can usually tell when something is clearly cropped, but I also just like the vibe of the original OP. The entire sequence has this shaky cam footage like style where in some shots it feels like the camera is adjusting to the focus, the frame keeps moving and getting destabilized, we often catch a few of the girls off guard while they're doing mundane things. Having the footage rendered in 4:3 is the icing on top, completely giving off this intimate and human feeling as if the entire sequence was recorded using a personal camera. Now, while I am glad that the footage was uploaded on YouTube, you know me, I don't like streaming services, especially with YouTube's track record of lowering the quality of the bitrate, so being able to collect a disc that contains what I consider to be the real OP experience is very nice. However, there are a few caveats. For one, I wasn't able to rip this using Make MKV. I'm not sure why. It's not even that it's unable to decrypt the disk, because I can clearly read this on VLC and MPV. There's just something about the program that isn't letting me get the option to export the footage. From what I can tell based on the logs, I think it's because the opening doesn't reach the minimum required length in order for the footage to be exported, but I'll have to look into this later because I'm actually not entirely sure. The other thing that I kind of already knew would be, I mean, I'm gonna say issue, but to be honest with you, in the grand scheme of things, it's really not a problem, which is the fact that the resolution of the OP, despite the aspect ratio being 4:3, it's not actually rendered in 1440 to 1080. Instead, it's full 1920 to 1080. So all it really is footage with black borders. And this doesn't really surprise me. I've been saying this about movie Blu-rays, where despite their aspect ratio being wider than 16:9 and also being fit for ultra-wide monitors, you can't actually take advantage of those because in all actuality, they're really just 16:9 rendered footage with black borders, which on PC, if you have VLC, at least you should be able to use the crop feature to make the footage fit the screen. But even that could end up introducing other issues. As an example, let's say you have a 2560 to 1080 monitor, which is a very conservative resolution. A lot of ultra widescreen monitors are actually even wider than that, but I'm gonna use the monitor that I have as an example. If I buy a full HD Blu-ray, they're always going to be rendered at 1920 to 1080. So if you crop the footage to remove the black borders, you're really getting 1920 to 800 and something resolution, which is lower than the resolution of the monitor, and the footage is ultimately going to look comparatively blurry. But of course, this isn't really an issue with this opening because there's nothing really to crop. I don't have a 4:3 screen because if I did, I would need to crop the footage, otherwise it would have a full border around it. But luckily that's not really an issue with any of my monitors. And I want to believe that most people are probably not going to face this issue. Like, how many people even have 4:3 monitors unless it's on the office or something like that? Anyway, monitor talk aside, a couple of months ago I uploaded a video showcasing how with a few scripts you can actually make your Blu-ray watching experience on Linux more convenient. And I will say that that video still holds up for me because with MPV I can easily bypass one of the things about DVDs and Blu-rays that annoy me a lot, which is the piracy and copyright disclaimers at the start of the disc autoplay. Regardless, this was a pretty nice buy. I think if there's ever a time to buy physical media, it's definitely now. I'm glad that the music industry recognized the importance and demand for physical media because on the gaming side of things, it's very clear that that's just getting neglected. And that makes me very sad, but it is what it is. I'll just have to move on to different mediums in order to collect physical media because I still like doing that. And honestly, I've been doing that for a while, so ain't no way I'm stopping right now just because Sony decided that they no longer want to sell PS5 or PS6 copies. But anyway, that's all I want to share.